Okay, so we're working on the concept of value through hatching and cross-hatching. So it's a pretty simple concept. We're making what we call a value scale. And you can think of it like a scale in music. It's going to start light on one side and get increasingly dark as we go across. I'm going to make two of them, one using hatching and one using cross-hatching. Now, the hatching one is going to be essentially one set of parallel lines. So I'm not going to cross over each other. I'm not going to scribble necessarily. You want to make these lines fairly controlled. And if you were drawing an object, you would be trying to make those lines follow the contours of what you're doing. My first box is going to be white, so I don't have to do anything there. That's awesome. In the next box, I'm going to put a few lines fairly far apart to make that area feel a little bit darker. In the next one, I'm going to start putting my lines closer together. In the next one, closer together still. And in my final box, that's going to be about as close as I can get to a really, really dark value. I'm going to put them as close together as I can possibly get. Can you see, even though it's kind of pale on the screen, can you see how it's getting darker as I go from left to right? The bottom one is going to be a little easier to see. This is going to be our cross-hatching. So here again, I'll start with just a few lines. This time, I might go in another direction as well. So we put in a few directional lines there. But in this middle box, I'm going to put not only more lines closer together, but I'm going to do more layers. In this one, even more lines, even closer together. In the first box, I did 2 layers. In the third box, I did 3 layers. I'm going to go for 4 layers here. And I think you can see that it's definitely starting to read as darker as I go from left to right. Yeah? And so, of course, here I'm packing the lines in as tight as I can, close together. I'm going to go for 5 layers, I think. That's 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? So we're going from light to dark. Trust me, it is a little darker to my eyes than it looks on your screen right now, but you get the basic concept? Okay, I see nodding heads. That's good. Now, I'm going to switch over to a marker so you can see it a little more clearly. All right, so when we go to do our objects, let's think about the contours and cross contours. If you've got something like a sphere, remember that that object is going to sit below your eye level. So you're going to see mostly cross contour curves like so, getting close to horizontal in the middle and bowing out on the sides. But your horizontal ones are going to be curves this way. So if I've got a light source from here shining in, and this is my lighter side, to do this in hatching and cross-hatching, I'm putting in more lines closer together that start to overlap and create this illusion of there being a shadow side on this object. Notice that I'm making a transition from really dark here to kind of middle gray here to a little bit lighter there. And I'm doing that simply by putting the lines further apart on this side, fewer of them further apart, putting them a little closer and more of them here, and then packing them in on this side. What else do I need to do here, though, do you think, to make this look more 3D? Something we worked on last week a lot. Something that sounds terrible. Negative, right? In this case, we don't mean negative as a bad thing, like a negative point value on your GPA. We mean negative like the empty space, right? So where could I put some marks to show the empty space? What would be the most logical thing to do? Outside of the object, cast shadow, right? Like if the light is coming here, then he's going to throw a shadow this way on the table. Do my horrible grids on the table suddenly make sense to you? Because what can I do here? Can I show the perspective of the table as it moves away from me? That starts to look kind of real, doesn't it? And again, I'm putting more and more lines closer and closer together in the middle, or right at the edge here of the shadow. See how it looks now that I have a dark middle and a light as it starts to fade out? Try to avoid this effect. An object, even if it's rendered with cross contour, where the shadow just kind of stops on a hard edge, doesn't that look kind of weird? And especially this, like an outline around the shadow, tends to look a little fake. Most shadows that you see are going to have this effect. This inner part here where it's darkest, we usually refer to that as the core of the shadow. The outer bit here where it starts to fade, we refer to that as the penumbra. The prefix pen literally means next to the. So umbra means shadow. So this edge is called the next to the shadow. And it tends to fade. Almost the only time that you guys are going to see really, really hard edge shadows is if the light is super extreme. For instance, if you've ever been on the beach like at noon and you look down at your shadow on the sand, real hard edge there, right? But most of the time you're sitting in your house, you're looking at some objects on a table, if they're casting a shadow, it's going to have a lighter outer edge. That's your penumbra. Some other things to avoid. Why is this off? What's wrong there? It totally does, right? Because I'm not following the I'm so joking with you, no one's doing it. Cross contour, right? The cross contour lines tend to show us the roundness of the form, the volume, and that's not happening here. Look how bad it gets if I throw a shadow outside of that object doing it the same way. Doesn't this look even more flat? I mean, it's not wrong in a way. It has a light side and a dark side, doesn't it? And there's a cast shadow on the left-hand side, but doesn't it look fake? So suddenly, and I know I've been kind of goofy this morning, but I'm excited about this. You're now taking everything we've learned with these kind of hard project-oriented drawings and putting it all together. You're taking your gesture skills to give me possible compositions. You're taking your positive, negative skills to fix your proportions, your angles, and to think about your negative space. You're now taking your cross contour knowledge and turning it into light and shadow. It's going to make your drawings this week look more realistic than anything you've done for me for a graded project up to this point. You up to the challenge? Yes. Mariah says yes. I'm going to believe that that is true for all of us, right? It's so weird. I can't see whether you're smiling or sticking your tongues out at me. So on one level, I feel confident. On another level, I feel like you may be a little mad. No, think of it like this. You are trying now to do the stuff that you wanted to do when you first picked up a pencil. Remember how we all want to make super realistic things, right? But we often do it the wrong way. We do it the details first. This method is going to allow you to do a quick gesture, study, figure out where stuff is, get a good composition, check all your measurements and angles before you commit to hard outlines, and then get into this idea of making it look not only three-dimensional, but to show us the light and the shadow. So think of this as your opportunity to really show how well you can draw. You with me? All right, let's do it. I'm going to turn the lights on in the room, but leave the spotlight on so you have more range of value on the objects, and you can start in on your thumbnail sketches.